Hi, Bill and Jenna.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you tell us what is the Park Slope Food Co-op?
So the food co-op is a collection of volunteers that sign up for different shifts and come and work in what is like a grocery store. However, it does take some paid staff that organize the central decision making about what's going to be purchased and what's how the store is going to be organized. So there's a handful of paid staff that make those decisions. But I believe there's how many members would you say there are, Bill?
It may have changed because of COVID, but the
Yeah.
membership is somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 people.
Yes, the recent pandemic definitely took a hit.
I would also, some other unique principles of the co-op is that the decisions of the co-op are set at a monthly meeting called the general meeting. The general meeting is a vote of the entire membership of whoever attends the meeting. Policies are discussed at that meeting and then they're voted on. And the general meeting is the way that all of the major decisions of the co-op are determined. The staff is not in charge of the co-op. The general membership is in charge through that process. And that's one of the things that makes it unique. The other thing that makes it unique is that you cannot shop at the co-op by paying extra or by just being, I don't know, you have to work there to be a member, and you cannot shop there unless you're a member. So the co-op is entirely used only by the people who work there. So when you're there, you're not at a business that's trying to make money. You're at your own business that you run in order to help you get food that you can trust. That there's not a commercial or financial motivated player in the food delivery chain between you and the suppliers.
Okay. Would you say that that is one of the main goals of the Park Slope Food Co-op?
I think that for members, there's the key drivers for membership is one, that is really high quality food for way less than you would get anywhere else. That's one. Two, it's an experience of civic engagement, as in it's very rare to be involved in a collective action for the common good like this. And so that's the second reason. And I think that there are also a group of people that are members on principle, that they believe that they don't want to support commercial processes for getting food, and that this is just the only ideologically sound way to get food. So those are kind of the three legs of motivation for people to be members.
Okay. Do you know? That's very interesting. Do you know like who founded it or when it started, or no?
It started in the 80s by a group of locals in Park Slope who had created their own attempt at a buyer's club. A buyer's club is like, I want to buy cheese, but I only want to buy this much cheese. Or I want to buy flour, but I only want to buy this much. But I know that if I buy in a 50-pound bag or a whole wheel, I can have a much better price for this amount. So a group of people came together and said, let's create a buyer's club so that we can buy food for cheaper. And it just grew and grew and grew until it became a more like real organization, and they bought a space, and then that's how we got to where we are today.
Okay. And you said that you've been a part of the co-op for 20 years and Jenna 15, or you've been longer? Something.
I've been a member since 2000, and Jenna started in 2006.
Okay. And are those three kind of values, are those more or less your reasons for joining, or each of you, Bill and Jenna, like the reason you decided to join the co-op or to be
For
a part of it?
I'm definitely motivated by all three.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same for me. And we happened to live in an apartment that was very local to this store when we first joined, when I first joined. And so we could walk there, and that was very useful because you need to work there and shop there. So it's very nice if it's, very close distance. And that's something unique about, I mean, not all cities are very walkable, but this city and this part of the city is very walkable and accessible. But you don't have to live in the neighborhood to work there. There are many members that come from, maybe they take the train for 30 minutes or more to get there, and they still find it worthwhile to come.
Do you know how many members or how or the requirement like to work? Is it like a certain amount of hours per month or?
Yeah, the typical formulation is that it's about 3 hours every 4 weeks.
Okay.
But that has changed recently. They've extended it to out to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And the membership, it's some points it's been over 20,000 people, but it might have dropped to maybe closer to 10,000. But I really am only guessing as to the total membership right now.
Okay. Now, do you buy all of your groceries there? Would you say that you buy certain categories? Like, what would you say?
We probably buy 90% of our groceries there. Only because another feature of living in a big city is there's really a deli across the street from our apartment. So it's extremely,
Convenient.
convenient.
But in terms of grocery shopping, you get your groceries at the co-op?
Yeah, if we're buying a chicken or eggs or laundry detergent, or we're definitely going to the co-op.
Okay.
One thing I notice about being a member now, that when I go to a regular grocery store, there are several aisles dedicated to sugar products. And also up by the register, there is a massive amount of sugar that is sold by the register. And I love that. I wouldn't have known that that was a reason to be a member of the co-op, but I love that now that sugar is not presented to you in so many places while you're at the co-op. There is of course one aisle that has, a handful of sweet things, and of course, you can visit that aisle, but it's not the aisle that you walk past to just go buy vegetables. It's not, it's on one side of out of the way.
There's not a concept of merchandising. Most grocery stores are really controlled by the products, and they merchandise those products, and they get money to position products in certain ways. They put certain things at the end of the aisle that they're receiving money from the suppliers to do. The co-op does not have a merchandising department. They don't have a budget. They don't get money from suppliers to do merchandising. The entire business model is not geared around maximizing any particular product.
Are there other co-ops that like around New York or like that are similar to Park Slope Food Co-op or that you guys have seen?
There are like baby co-ops, as in people who have been members of Park Slope Food Co-op but left. They tried to start something nearby. The co-op supports them. So they give funding and advice and supplier relationships and scale support. So for example, if they need to buy a cash register, they'll let the co-op will buy it in their account and give them the thing and let them. Essentially, the co-op tries to create more co-ops. But nothing that's reached anything like the level of a Park Slope Food Co-op, but there are definitely a lot of satellite co-ops that are modeled the same.
So is there a central like fund co-op? Or I mean, because the members pay to be in and also work, right? Or is it just work?
So the members you don't have to pay a regular membership fee. You do have to pay an initial investment. The concept is that the co-op is actually a physical entity that has a store, that has a physical real estate and an inventory. And so that entity has a value. Say it's worth $1 million or $2 million. If you divide that across 10,000 people, that's like $20 a person or something like that. I don't know. So that when you join, you actually purchase a share of the co-op for that amount, which you can receive back when you leave. And that membership share is part of the symbolic ownership of the whole organization.
Okay.
Our share, our investment was $100 each when we first signed
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
I know during the pandemic, they were asking members to increase their investment amount. And for example, someone offered $600.
Yeah, they were having a cash flow crisis. So they simply asked to borrow money from the members.
Okay, that's interesting. And what kind of activities do you guys participate in at the co-op?
So there's a range of options for you. And one of my favorites right now is doing the checkout. So I ring up all the groceries and give the receipt to the shopper. And that's such a pleasure. It's so fun seeing all the products that are sold in a grocery store and all the vegetables. It's just amazing. And it's very pleasant to have personal interactions with people in a short, way. That there's no self-checkout in the co-op. You have to talk with someone that is basically your neighbor, and you it's all, I always have very pleasant conversations with the shoppers. And yeah, another position I had was as a walker, and this was convenient for me because I had a newborn baby, and she would ride in a baby carrier on my front, and I would stand outside the store, and my job was to walk customers with their shopping carts full to their apartment, or either to their car or to the subway or the bus stop, where then they would unload the cart and I would take the cart back to the store. And then I would wait for the next person who needed a walker, because there's no parking lot near the co-op. It's just street parking only. So you imagine there's hundreds of people using it every day. They have to park several streets away, or maybe they live 10 blocks away. So getting your groceries to your destination, and then what do you do with the cart? So that was my job. And that also was wonderful. That gave me even more time to have conversations with the people I was walking. And it was very, family friendly for me as a mom with a newborn baby. I could still accomplish my shift and keep my needs as a mom fulfilled.
That's great. Yeah, I worked in a grocery store, so I'm familiar with the different tasks, but it wasn't as communal.
My job
So
most recently was cheese processing.
cheese processing, yeah.
Yeah,
You were cutting the cheese.
we buy cheese in large blocks.
Yeah.
And so we cut it up into little portions. And another thing that we do is we buy spices in large portions, and we cut it up into little tiny portions. Typically, if you go to a store, because you need to buy cinnamon, you buy a container of cinnamon that by the time you're through the cinnamon, it's not going to be fresh. But the co-op is able to buy very fresh spices and to put them in little tiny bags. And so you get only enough cinnamon for 2 weeks, not for 2 years. And then when you need more cinnamon, you get more cinnamon.
Do you find the prices to be competitive or better or worse than local grocery stores?
Well, for things like cheese and things like spices, the difference is huge. Sometimes it's a third of the price or even better, especially for spices. But for some items, grocery stores are able to sell in large volumes. And if it's a commodity item that's always sold in large volumes, the co-op is really around the same price. So it ranges from parity to huge arbitrage, depending on how much profit the grocery stores are trying to make on that product.
That makes sense. Next one here that I see is, what benefits do you receive from participating in the food co-op? So I think that would be kind of along those three pillars, right? So that would be kind of the fresh food, the discounts, the community.
Yeah, the quality of the food, the organic food, I think we just helps us live a healthier lifestyle. And the produce section is so abundant, and the food in general. I think as members, we probably, well, Bill does a lot of the family cooking for us, so we're able to eat a lot of meals at home and just feel really satisfied about the quality of the food that we can prepare at home. I wish that everyone in the world could have that assurance when they're cooking, especially, making the effort to cook at home. The other benefits are the communal nature of it, and just feeling like you're part of a larger organization and that you're needed, that you belong and that you're contributing something, and that you can learn new skills. Being able to learn how to do checkout or learn how to do cheese processing, all of that is special. And also, while you're doing these tasks, you're either communicating with the shoppers directly, or there's the other, like Bill is sitting talking, processing cheese, but he's chatting with someone who may be of a different profession, or have a different position in their lives, and they can chat for 30 minutes or more, depending on how long they're together. And that is so satisfying. It's really, it makes the 2 hours and 45 minutes a month just kind of like vacation a little bit, especially for me as a mom with little kids. I can, another thing that's offered is there's a childcare room in where you can take, if your children are old enough, a baby would not be old enough, or an infant, but as long as they can be in a childcare space, they can play there. So anyway, it was like a vacation to not have 3 kids to be in charge of, and just have another type of experience. What are other benefits for you, Bill?
I think that one of the biggest benefits to me is that when I go to if I'm not able to go to the co-op, say I'm traveling, or I'm just in a place where that's not possible, when I'm shopping, every single item I look at, I just feel, I don't have the same feeling of like love and possibilities, that essentially someone is trying to trick me. This chicken was butchered in a way that increased the level of waste parts and reduced the quality of the chicken, and it's full of water. Or these vegetables, these vegetables are covered in spray, and the fruit is not ripe, and that it will never be ripe because it was picked prematurely and the wrong time of year for this fruit. And all of these things, I feel like I just don't know when I'm in another grocery store, and I maybe even avoid eating certain foods because I just can't be confident that I'll be able to eat those foods in a safe way. Whereas at the co-op, I know that the person who bought this food is me. The person who's picking, the people who care about the food are the ones, the people who eat the food are the ones who are selecting it. It totally transforms the relationship to the food. You know that somebody loved this. If I see a new product at the co-op, I know that there was people who decided that this product is worth having and I should try it. And usually they're right. And so the quality is so high, and that just even if the quality were not as high, I think there's a psychology to your food, a relationship to your food, that helps you enjoy it and helps your body absorb it. If you believe that it's good inherently, if you know that there's never someone in the process of getting this food who is out there to trick you. So there's something
Yeah.
about the experience of eating that's impacted by being a member.
Yeah, I think there's definitely truth to that. Knowing the source of the food and that it's kind of ethically sourced, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, do all the members of the household need to be a part of the co-op, or so like if it was just you, Bill, that was a member, would you and Jana be able to go, or do the kids, I guess, at a certain age?
This is a very controversial rule. And a lot of people make fun of the co-op because of it. So for example, suppose only I cared about the co-op and Jana didn't care about the co-op. And I was a member and I got married and we lived together. If the co-op discovers that Jana is a member of my household, but not a member of the co-op, then I could be kicked out of the co-op for breaking the rules, because the rules are that if you're in the same household eating the same food, all of the adults need to be in the co-op. And adult is defined as, I think, 18 years old.
No, maybe 16, I think. 16.
No, 14 for working, 18 for having to work.
Well, it's optional at 14.
14 you can sub for your parents, but 18 is when you have to work.
Okay.
Yeah. So 18 years old is when you have to start contributing. And kids who are 14 are allowed to do a shift for their parents, but they don't have to work.
So everyone 18 years and older in your house. So let's say if you lived with a parent as well, then you would have to pay the fee for everyone 18 and above in your house.
Not about paying the fee. It's more like doing the member labor shift.
Okay. That's right. The member labor shift. Yeah.
A way that some friends of ours have gotten away with that rule is, say that the husband is interested and the wife is not, or whatever, the partner is not. One partner will do 2 shifts a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they're essentially fulfilling the requirement, and that is okay. You know, if you're doing the work of 2 people, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, each adult. But anyway, that's one way.
So it's only the work that needs to be replicated or duplicated, not the fee, not the upfront fee.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if there's
The upfront fee would
every member
have to be included.
Yeah. Every member has to
Okay.
pay the upfront fee, and
Okay.
but it's not a fee as much as it's more of a loan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you could get it back, right?
Yeah, there's actually a loan and a processing fee. The processing fee is smaller. The loan, I think, might be more than 100 now. It's like 150. But the processing fee might be like $20 or something.
Yeah. 20,
but all of this is
$25.
available on the website, and also the policies about households are all in this thing called the membership manual that's linked from the homepage of the co-op, and so it's very transparent.
Okay. I think that would be helpful for Catalina and her professors to have. We could always link them to the website as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the products, the kinds of products that
Tom, you kind of blanked out on us, but I see what the question was. What are the what kind of products are most bought? What are the most high volume products?
Eggs, for sure. Chicken, for sure. And the produce, the onions, the potatoes, the apples. Oh, there's such a wonderful selection of apples. Here in New York, apples are our thing, and there's just a wide variety of very delicious apples that are sold.
It's really hard to answer that question because both of us have worked in checkout, and the experience in checkout is that 5 people can shop, and there could be no common products across all of those, across any of those carts, even though each of them is buying 50 or 100 items. There's just such a diversity of products.
Yeah.
And I would say that overall, the co-op is selling the same range of things as a normal grocery store, but with a few areas that might be overemphasized. The number one being fresh produce. Because there's such a good supply of really good fresh produce. And the other is cheeses. Because there's the arbitrage on cheese because of the co-op processing the cheese, there's more people buy cheese because it's such a good deal. And there's a few other products that are kind of like that. Beer, I think, and coffee are in that category, where people buy a disproportionate amount because typical stores have a much higher markup for those products.
Okay, so like eggs. Can you guys hear me? I switched to my computer. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
We gave a full answer while you were switching. So you
No,
missed-
I was there when it was black. So eggs, beer, coffee, and chicken are kind of the main ones, but there's also, you said, like a diverse.
Hopefully, it's. I'd say the range of products is the same as any grocery store, in terms of, but with a few areas that have a slight disproportionately larger share, just because of the co-op has done a really good job of making those more affordable.
Okay. And I mean, this one was kind of answered a little bit. What is the work environment like, and what is the activity that you carry out? So that goes anything from walking people with the cart, doing the checkout, processing some of the food to be packaged, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of stocking.
Yeah.
And receiving of boxes. So when a truck comes with cases of tomatoes, there's organizing that and putting it into the refrigerated rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the back end parts of the grocery store are all being handled by the members. There's also administrative tasks and shifts that are activities that you would not expect necessarily for people to be doing at a grocery store. For example, the co-op tries to glean vegetables that would otherwise be thrown away, and brings them on a daily basis to a kitchen that feeds homeless people. So, for example, if there's like a zucchini that's broken in half, typically a grocery store would just throw that in the trash. But the co-op says this could be cooked. Nobody's going to buy it. So all of that food is collected every day and taken over to the kitchen, where it's just prepared into food by cooks for homeless people. There are other jobs like that. So the people who do that are on there. That's a job at the co-op and that you can have. There's other jobs that are really around the more socially oriented mission of the organization that you would never see at a normal grocery store, but they're also part of the array of options.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess the next question is related to the amount of work versus the amount of benefit that you receive, and how do you feel that ratio is? Do you feel like you receive more value, or do you feel like compared to the work that you do?
I think it depends on how you value the benefits, because if you look at it purely financially, you would probably say, if my time is, say, worth $50 per hour and I work 3 hours, am I getting $150 back? The answer is almost certainly no, if it's purely a financial calculation. But I don't think that it is a financial calculation, as in the co-op is adding so much to our lives, both in the relationship with our food, the quality of our food, the feeling of being part of something, knowing that we're supporting a system that is making the world a better place. And then most importantly, the time we spent at the co-op is enjoyable. It's not work, like me going to work and somebody paying me. It's work where I get to produce value for my neighbors, and I get to do something that is fun and different and interesting, and to be with other people. So it's not a financial calculation. And the question of worth, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, I would say, from the way that you guys speak about the co-op, I think that it's worth it. But I mean, I don't have the experience of being in the co-op.
Yeah.
And I know the answer to the next question, being friends with you guys. Have you recommended other people join the co-op?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
think what really worked, one recommendation is I brought up that there is very, very delicious fresh prepackaged sushi that you can buy, and it's about, it used to be about $3, maybe now it's $4, which is so affordable. And this couple decided, all right,
They joined for the sushi.
we're joining for the sushi. Because you can drop in and get a delicious lunch.
Who's that?
Or we often will buy a package and feed the kids while we're shopping.
I think Stephanie would join just for that. Let me see. What is the importance of the co-op within Park Slope and within Brooklyn in general, within the community?
So it has made Park Slope famous. It's one of the most well-known organizations of Park Slope, but Park Slope has gone through a lot of gentrification in recent years, and certainly in the 80s, it was not nearly the type of neighborhood that it is now. But for us, we moved away from Brooklyn and then moved back, and it was definitely a concern for us to move somewhere in the vicinity of this grocery store where we could travel there comfortably enough by train to get to the store.
And
what would you?
Oh no, go on. Did you have something else to add, Bill?
Yeah, you were just thinking. The question was, what does it mean for Park Slope?
I think that another impact of the co-op, and we're evidence of this, is that our decision about where to live is in part driven by how far the place is from the co-op. That in New York City, we've never lived anywhere that was too far from the co-op to be convenient to go there. And so the co-op is sort of a center of gravity for people to live in that neighborhood. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what are your constraints in your life. Because, for example, if you lived in the neighborhood and you're renting, the rent is through the roof. It's one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the world now. And it's because so many people want to be near something like that. The previous mayor of New York City lived near the Park Slope Food Co-op, not in Manhattan, which is a much more high-profile area of New York City, but he lived in Brooklyn by the co-op because that's one of the most desirable places to live on the planet is in that neighborhood. And so that demand has driven a huge increase in the value of the land. And I'd say that's both a good thing and a very bad thing, especially for people who can't afford to pay very high rent. And we've never been able to afford to live right by the co-op. We've only been able to afford to live 2 or 3 miles away from the co-op because of that.
Yeah.
But I think that's a rare case, and it's definitely driven in part by New York City's own economic fluctuations. This is a unique to New York City situation.
In our case, our children go to a school that also is in that same neighborhood, even though we haven't lived in that neighborhood. Oh, actually, we did live in that neighborhood when we first got married, and we didn't have children. But now that we have children, we've moved out of that neighborhood. But we find ourselves going back there for the grocery store and for the school. And so even though we live several neighborhoods away, we go back there for those reasons. And it's when I think of the parents that are a part of the school that we go to, they also shop at the co-op, or they're also members of the co-op. The director of the school is a member of the co-op. And Noah, and other significant, all the families are significant, but anyway, there's a large chunk of them that also shop at the co-op. So there's an overlap there that that neighborhood has attracted like-minded people for other projects such as schools or churches. There's some fantastic community-minded churches that even if you're not a member of that church, they reach out to you and invite you to events. I'm not a member of any of the churches in that neighborhood, but I've been to their events just because they're so community friendly and welcoming, and I love that about that neighborhood.
That's great. I was looking up because I've seen the co-op before, but I just was trying to picture where it is. They have 798 reviews, 800 reviews, 5 stars, 4.7 stars on reviews. I think if you search your local grocery store, I think you might have 3 reviews and they're all 1 stars. You know, yeah, and I think that answers the next question, which is about how involved is the Brooklyn community in managing the food parks of food co-op, and I think that goes into the other boroughs as well. And then, so I mean, the next one would be the role that the co-op played in solving the food problems during COVID-19.
You know, this is a really good question, and I would say that the co-op failed in this regard. Do you remember at the beginning, I was explaining how the co-op is organized through this process of a general meeting?
Mhm.
As a result of that, the co-op is very slow to adapt to changes. When you have such a large organization that's serving so many different needs, it's the safest thing is the status quo. But as a result of COVID, the world changed very quickly. But the co-op does not have a process for adapting to rapid change. It's more of an institution that intends to be the same for the next 500 years, or to evolve slowly over the next 500 years. And as a result, the co-op did not adapt to COVID. There was no food delivery. There was no special process for helping families that were suffering from COVID or suffering from a lack of food. Neither of those were addressed by the co-op. And I think it was a really big gap, entirely resulting from that, the slowness of being able to adapt. There was also the staffing model of the co-op is not amenable to a pandemic.
Yeah,
If you
that
think
was my next
we
thought.
would have a few people who maybe are immune or vaccinated serving a lot of other people, but in the co-op, there's people cycling in all the time for all the jobs because one cash register is not staffed by one person, it's staffed by 4 or 5 people throughout the day. And so it's a very highly interchanging environment with the chance for disease to spread very quickly. Because of that, people are very, very scared of going to the co-op, going inside, doing their shift. The co-op had a very hard time adapting to COVID, and it was very damaging to the membership.
There were very long lines that you'd have to wait because they limited the amount of people that could come in at one time. So say only 20 people could be in the store shopping at a time. So you'd have to wait outside, and some time you could wait an hour or more waiting in line. So that really hurt you're not going to do that every time. You'll shop somewhere else if you have to wait that long.
Yeah. I think that when there isn't a pandemic, the co-op does have a big impact on the food crisis in a few ways. One is that the co-op is able to participate in WIC, which is the U.S. Program for feeding like poor families. And so if you're on government assistance, some of that assistance is earmarked for food only. The co-op can process that. So you can spend your food money at the co-op. And as a result, if you're poor and you're so poor that you're on government assistance, your government assistance dollars can go much further at the co-op than at other grocery stores. And so in the end, the co-op helps feed families who are the poorest in New York City. Plus, there's the gleaned food that the co-op doesn't eat. The co-op tries not to waste any food at all. I think some grocery stores waste a significant percentage of their food. I see statistics all the time about how much food is thrown out by grocery stores. But the co-op produces large boxes of food that go to people who are hungry.
And is that the food that goes to people that are hungry? Is that based on, is that food that's going to be thrown out that goes to, underprivileged families, or how does that work?
Goes to a homeless shelter that's in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Also, no food is technically thrown out. If it's not savable, it is composted.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's too far gone to be useful, like maybe there's something rotten that's not edible. If that happens, the food is not thrown into it doesn't go into landfill, it goes into compost, which is helpful. That doesn't necessarily help with the food crisis, but it is better for the environment.
Yeah, better for the environment.
Yeah.
What are the values supporting and keeping strong the co-op? I think you mentioned those in the beginning, right? 3. Maybe reiterate those.
Yeah, the 3 motivations are that it's a great deal for quality food, that it's an ideological decision around cooperativism and making sure that you're supporting systems of cooperation. And then the third is that it's a civic engagement opportunity. It's a way for people to be together, to have an experience of working with other people in a different way than than the normal capitalist relationships that we have.
And the biggest problems that the co-op has faced, I think COVID is probably one of the biggest problems, right?
COVID is definitely, I think, the most threatening thing that has ever happened to the co-op. It was a really difficult thing because the co-op is not designed for rapid adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely kind of, like you said, evolving over time as opposed to rapid change. And so I think if I'm right, Catalina, here, the kind of one of the purposes of the call would be to learn more, but also to learn to possibly implement kind of the same model in Colombia. So what advice would you give to the team on the line here? And I don't understand the last question there, but I think, yeah. What advice would you give to the team here?
Yes, the must be.
What are the must-haves? Yeah.
The must-haves. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I have some ideas about what you would need. The first is a committed group of people who really care about how they get their food, that are willing to go above and beyond and to make sacrifices. Because the first group of people will never get as much out of it as they're going to have to put in. They have to really care. The next is to think about building something for the future. When they created their buyers club in the 1980s, there's lots of people who have buyers clubs. Lots of people come together to buy things. But it was that group that created a buyers club that became an institution. And it's because when they were thinking about what they were doing, they were thinking about the institution. They wanted to build something to last. So they created the general meeting process. They created systems for many more people to get involved without any limits on how many people could be involved. They made investments. There were long-term investments in physical space and in building out processes. They also invested in transparency, knowing that this is a thing that many people were involved in. When you go to a business or a place where lots of people are going all the time, when you walk in, typically you have no idea what's going on. But when you go to the co-op, it's very obvious what's going on because everything has a sign telling you what to do. In the bathroom, there's a sign next to the soap bottle explaining where the refill is for the soap bottle. And that is an eye-opening experience to think we can structure our world so that the knowledge is shared so that everyone can collaborate, everyone can cooperate. That was a philosophical principle, I think, that drove the original founders, and it helped make it easy to grow. We've both spent time in Colombia, and it's I think that Colombia is one of the places in this world where it's most likely to succeed, because I think that there's a feeling of, one, a lot of people care a lot about their food, and they know that there's a lot of practices around food that are dangerous. I think everyone is very aware of that in Colombia. There's not a huge divide between rural and farming life and city life. That Medellin is the country. People know about food in Medellin. They're not stupid, and they care. It's also possible to get food locally because it's a very rich area food-wise, and it means that it's possible to go and supply food by finding farmers and getting your food that way. So I think that the possibilities are there. It's the kind of place where the benefits are there, the people are there, the intelligence are there, the civic mindedness are there. I think that Antiochians are very focused on building cooperative systems. It's just in Colombia, it's the place where you see that the most. It's just famous for people thinking, how can I improve public life? It's the most innovative public life place in this hemisphere, I think. So I think there's a lot of hope for something like this, and the skills are there and the need is there.
That's great.
Great. Thank you so much, Hannah and Bill Beckler. They belong to the Slow Food Park, Slow Food Park Co-op. And I want to ask you a last question. The whole project is one store. What is the area of the whole store?
I mean, the physical area. It's shockingly small.
Physical area, yes.
Let me tell you, I'm just gonna, it's smaller than a typical, grocery store. So in the United States, we have these things called supermarkets. A supermarket is a giant building with a ceiling that's higher, that's like twice as high as a normal ceiling. And there's 50 aisles of food in American supermarkets. It's an extremely large place. And you always drive there. And there's a big parking lot for cars. New York City is different. Most people in New York City have very small stores that are called corner stores or bodegas. And then there are full-size grocery stores that would be considered tiny compared to an American supermarket. The Co-op is, I would say, on the small end of a full-size grocery store in New York City. But to understand how big that is, you'd have to come to New York and see how big that is. It's not, I don't actually know the answer to your question numerically.
Okay.
Would it help to have like a next conversation with a tour of the co-op? Would that be helpful to see how big it is, to see how it's set up?
You know, right now the Co-op has a policy of restricting visitors because they're worried about COVID and they want to minimize the number of people who come inside. And I think that policy may be around for many more months. So it's not easy to have a tour of the Co-op. But I just Googled the question and it looks like it's 6,000 square feet, that's about 600 square meters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a helpful number.
It is over 2 floors. There's the shopping floor, or there's 3 floors. There's the shopping floor, there's the basement where a lot of food prep and stocking happens, and then there's the upper floor where all of the administrative offices are.
Okay. Thank you so much to Hannah and Bill Beckler for being with us today and Tom to translate.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to meet you all.